Hey there, thank you for clicking on my video. So I'm going to do a brief introduction to what we're going to cover in this video. We're going to be installing a Boyesen Rad valve with a spacer and the Lectron carburetor. I'm going to be installing this on a 2009 YZ250. This applies to 2005 to 2021 YZ250s. Yamaha thought, well, if it ain't broke, why fix it? So they've kept it the same for all these years. So what we'll be covering is how to install both of these on the YZ. There's not a lot of room in the frame. So when it comes to installing the airbox boot onto the back of the Lectron, it can be very difficult. There's no room. It's so close to shock spring to actually pushing on the boot. So I'm going to show you guys my quick tip that I figured out how to install this carburetor in a quick, easy way, and I hope it can help you out. Let's dive into it.
First, let's get the Boyesen Rad valve installed. I want to note you will need 2 gaskets when using a reed cage spacer. Nothing is more frustrating than when you go to finally have time to do this project, and when you sit down to do it, you quickly realize you need 2 gaskets. Go ahead and get your 8mm bolts lightly threaded into place. Kind of move everything around together, that way it's straight and lined up together. Slowly torque everything down in a cross pattern. Another thing to note, the Boyesen Rad valve does come with 1 new gasket, and then it does come with new 8mm bolts. Once all the bolts are nice and firm, go ahead and get your intake boot removed off of the rad valve. This will help assist getting the Lectron carb into place. I have tried installing the Lectron carb from the rear. It will not fit with the shock and its mounting place. So you have to remove the top mounting bolt, but even then you don't have a lot of room to get the Lectron carb put into place. The biggest battle is getting the subframe airbox boot to slide onto the back of the Lectron carb when you already have it in the rad valve intake boot. So the trick I have found is if you leave the top mounting bolt on the subframe in place and the bottom 2 removed, you kind of swing up and down. If you install the Lectron carb into the air filter box intake boot on the rear of the carb first, and then kind of pivot everything downwards and then push it into the intake boot on the rad valve. This is the easiest way I've found, because trying to get the back of the intake boot onto the Lectron carb is very difficult because it is such a tight fit. So you kind of get everything lined up. Once it's in that position, just give it a nice push and it'll pop right into the intake boot on the rad valve. Make sure the flat side of the needle is facing the engine when installing the Lectron slide. Install the small hex screws that go on the top of the slide cover. Note, if you need to make adjustments on your Lectron carb while it's still in the bike, you can remove the tank and you can loosen up the boot clamps and you can rotate counterclockwise towards you, and you can remove the slide to make adjustments if needed.
Hey guys, this is the end result of the install with the Boyesen Rad valve with the spacer and the Lectron carburetor. So from the research I've done, you have to run this reed spacer with the rad valves due to when the rad valve is actually installed all the way into the cylinder, the reed pedals will hit that wide open throttle. Now, I don't know how much proof there is to that, but from what I've read and come to the conclusion on, that I have to run the spacer. The only two cons really when doing that is you don't have a lot of room. You'll see throttle cable will hit the frame. You could take the time and make room there on the frame if you wanted, but that's not something I'm doing. And the other con is the spring will rub on the airbox boot. But from what also people have said, that spring don't move really significantly a lot. So at that point on this air filter airbox boot, it won't rub a hole through it. It's making contact, but it shouldn't ever rub a hole through the boot. As you can tell, these Lectron carbs are actually a little bit wider than the stock ones that come on these YZs. So when you include this rad valve, spacer, and the extra width of the Lectron, there ain't a whole lot of room left. I hope my tips and tricks help you with the install if you guys decide to go that route with the Boyesen Rad valve with the Lectron carb. Level of difficulty on this, I'd say before I figured out the way I did it, it was definitely around the hard range because it took me about 30 minutes to get that intake boot on the airbox side to actually squeeze onto the Lectron carb. I spent a half hour battling it. I took the shock loose, moved it back. Even then, it was still very difficult to get it in there. So at that rate, it was around a hard. Once I figured out that new way to do it, I'm leaning more towards average because it only took me less than 5 minutes to get everything together and put it right back into place. So if you guys like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, please comment down below. If you want more of a one-on-one question, I have an email in my description, so shoot me an email. Have a good one.